Few people are as dedicated to fighting litter as Paul Laure. Whether it's sidewalks, abandoned lots, roadsides, even highways, he's determined to pick up every last piece. Because even a small piece of plastic poses a big threat when you add it all up. In 2021 alone, America threw away 51 million tons of plastic. Of that, only 6% got recycled. Litter grabber in hand, Paul has spent the last 3.5 years removing plastic waste from our urban trails, and I sat down to talk with him about it.
I'm Paul Laure. I live here in Marshall-Shadeland. I moved here in 2020 with my husband, Mark. We bought a house here. Just enjoy litter picking around the neighborhood as a hobby, and it's kind of turned into an obsession now around my work schedule a little bit.
So you say it's a hobby, but after watching the footage and after walking with you on your death-defying route, my first question is, do you consider yourself an environmental activist?
Yes, in the sense that I try to inspire others to also get out if they see me. And I think if he can do this on a highway or on off-ramp where it's dangerous, maybe when I get home and I see that pop can a door down on the road on my side street, maybe I should go pick it up and try to prevent that from going into the river. I'm just hoping as I more regularly steward those areas that can be a little more dangerous, if you will, that people will think if they're going to litter to maybe litter less or litter in an easier area for not only me but for other people to collect. I'm a realist. I know as far as illegal dumping and littering and things, it's never going to be zero. Someone's always going to want to throw a pop can out a window or a Wendy's bag or dump a tire somewhere. I just picked up 2 tires the other day on Brighton Road again. It's a matter of convenience if someone just wants to toss it. But I'm hoping at least people can think about it and not toss it closer to the rivers or to the waterways, maybe throw it closer to where it's easier for people to clean, and do it less frequently as well. But yes, it's definitely dangerous where I go.
What systems do you see that could solve some of these problems so that you, an individual, don't have to walk out against traffic?
As far as long-term solutions are concerned, unfortunately, the infrastructure here, especially the highway superstructures, very antiquated. They were designed in the 50s and 60s, mostly around the city here in the urban areas or urban renewal. Ideally, I've seen the city obviously has street sweepers. I would hope PennDOT has the same. It'd be nice if once in a blue moon, they could at least run a street sweeper up and down the ramps, maybe to collect cigarette butts and chip bags, like smaller items at least, and make it a little easier and less cumbersome.
So I wanted to estimate the amount of trash you've picked up since you started.
I've lived in the neighborhood since March of 2020, so let's say 3.5 years now. I would say about February to March of 21 is when I started going out regularly picking.
And how often do you go out?
Typically 4 times a week.
And then how many bags per time that you go out?
If I had to do an average, 3 contractor-sized bags, and each bag is about 40 pounds when full. So about 120 pounds per session.
Per session.
Yeah.
So 120 times 4 times 52.
480 times 52.
Times 3.5.
87,360.
Wow.
That's a lot of pounds.
87,000.
That's a lot.
From Marshall-Shadeland's neighborhood.
Yeah.
And how would you describe Marshall-Shadeland to people who don't know Marshall-Shadeland?
Our neighborhood is mostly residential. We have 2 small business districts, one at Shadeland and Woodland. They're 2 primary neighborhood streets with a few businesses. Another primary business district's on Brighton Road leading into the Woods Run sub-neighborhood of Marshall-Shadeland. Now that part of the neighborhood gets a lot of traffic, foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, motor vehicle traffic. A lot of bars are in that area, so a lot of people come through from other parts of the north side or other parts of the county to recreate. It's a challenge, it really is, in that part of the neighborhood to keep that clean, and that is the target area of urban trails, where we try to worry about the watershed along Woods Run and the bike trail, and basically having a clean, green trail between the river and Riverview Park. Woods Run's business district smack dab in the middle. It's very challenging to remediate that.
What are the descriptors that you would have for Marshall-Shadeland? Like, I mean, for me, what got me into the work is that it's beautiful.
I'm glad you
I
mentioned
think
that,
it's
Anna.
beautiful.
I love the nature here. We are
Yeah.
4 miles approximately from downtown. I work downtown. If I drive to work, I'm there in 8 minutes. If I take transit, I'm there in 20. It's very close and proximate to the middle of the city, at the hubbub. But I can leave for work in the morning. I work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. I leave around 5 a.m. It's still dark. There's deer. I see raccoons. I've seen wild turkeys. There are some aggressive wild turkeys in parts of the neighborhood, as aggressive north side birds, if you will. But having that mixture of flora and fauna intermingled with a diverse neighborhood here.
If this could be your job, what are some of the things you would like to accomplish within that?
What I would like to see is if this were to be a pilot program, to have it expand citywide in different neighborhoods that could really benefit underserved neighborhoods like Knoxville or Carrick or Belts Hoover, Perry South here on the north side, or Perry Hilltop. We're proximate to other neighborhoods that have a lot more resources and get a lot more attention from environmental groups, from city, from different neighbors.
Another core mission of Urban Trails, obviously, is to think about what we see for the future of this neighborhood.
I live right in the shadow of the old Pittsburgh Public School, Horace Mann School. It's a beautiful edifice, probably from like the 1880s, 1890s. It's brick. It looks just gorgeous, but it's been vacant for about 12 years now. And granted, the current developer, they maintain the grounds. They'll have crews come around and weed whack, and they'll mow the lawn and things. I pick up litter around the grounds as I can. I just did a few days ago around the basketball court. But that's one such opportunity site for redevelopment in the neighborhood. Some of my neighbors want it torn down, which I'm more of a preservationist. I'm against that. I think it's a beautiful building. Restore it, make it a community center, make it mixed income housing of some sort. I am a realist. I think housing is a big issue in this whole city and this whole country right now. A lot of people need housing, but I also know no developer is going to altruistically put 50 just affordably priced apartments in there without some sort of incentive. So I personally, if you asked me for my opinion as a neighbor of that school living 4 doors away, I would love to see that school be, if it's 50 apartments, maybe 30 market rate, 20 subsidized, or some mixture like that. And there is room for a commercial spot, maybe a coffee shop or something where people can sit and have a third space and talk.
The idea of a plastic ban, can you, in your mind, how do you describe it to people in a way that is it in any way realistic?
It's only going to be effective here if we can get other neighboring jurisdictions on board. I know I'm not a native of here. I grew up in the Scranton area, but everything's so fragmented, it's often difficult to get cooperation between the city and a lot of the suburban jurisdictions to do a uniform Allegheny County, countywide plastic bag ban or single-use plastic ban or plastic bottled water ban. For it to be effective, it would have to be countywide or even metro area wide. So much of our traffic, foot traffic and otherwise motor vehicle traffic is from outside the city. It still wouldn't help much as far as remediating litter or dumping if it was just our little island of, being green surrounded by plastic everywhere coming into the city.
What would be your one-sentence pitch as for why we need a plastic ban? A single-use plastic ban.
You put me on the spot here, like an elevator pitch for single-use plastic ban. I'll have to think about that for a moment. Peak oil. I just think, you need to use petrochemicals, which are in limited supply, to create these plastics. So just as a phrase, peak oil, I would just say to somebody. And if I would explain that eventually might not be in our lifetimes as we're 40-ish, but our children's or grandchildren's lifetimes, this will be a very different planet if there's no more petrochemicals or fossil fuels available. And if we're not trending now towards reducing our dependency upon them, we're going to have a very dark future for them, for our next generations. I look at Beaver County as a prime example. That cracker plant, the ethylene cracker plant up there, basically makes plastic bags, from what I understand, or things along those lines. I mean, this was promised as being this panacea. This would save Beaver County. Their population decline would stop, and everyone would be driving around in Mercedes-Benzes up there. And it hasn't had much of a positive economic effect on that area at all. That charming little town of Beaver, they're always susceptible. If that thing starts belching in the middle of the night and there's a siren going off, if something happens, they're just going to expose toxins into the atmosphere, into the river, and it's a very heavily concentrated area of population right there. And that's all to supply our society's need for plastics, single-use plastics. And I would tell someone confused about peak oil and that's tech savvy. Everyone has a smartphone these days. Go onto, there's a site I like called Worldometer or Worldometer. I got into that during the COVID pandemic because they in real time tracked every country that reported like their number of cases, number of deaths, number of recoveries, every like county in the US. It was all centralized. One of the things they do as well is, you know, days until peak oil. That's one of like the things they track. It's kind of an exhaustive website, but you can see all these little ticker timers, and it's just kind of, for people like with anxiety issues, it can be a little, you know, seeing all these little tickers and
That's why you go out on the highway.
yes, because it's less stressful to be near trucks flying by me.
And looking at the timer. Another day's gone by. One day closer,
to peak oil.
That's a good horror movie. It's a good horror movie.
It would be. Mad Max Fury Road, I guess, would be the
I mean,
closest.
I guess that is, yeah. Oh my God.
Coming to a country near you in 100 years or sooner.